Can you imagine how it would have felt the first time one of our primitive ancestors lit their own fire, and they created that spark with flint and iron pyrite, or when they created the ember by rubbing two pieces of wood together, when they learnt that no matter where they were, they could light a fire to warm them, and to cook their food by, and light up the dark night, as long as they had the right materials to start it. Imagine how it would have felt to learn that you had control over this vital element, that you could create it. They no longer had to gather embers from a natural forest fire, or take the flame from volcanic lava as it flowed down the mountainside. They could find the materials they needed in their natural environment, the flint, the pyrite, or the wood to make friction fires. And they learnt how to cook their food, either in the flame, baking it on a stone, wrapping it in clay, and then would go on to make pots to cook in, and stone ovens. So who's to say that our primitive ancestors didn't enjoy a Sunday roast just like the rest of us? So it's no surprise that humans have revered fire as a vital part of their existence and have celebrated it. They recognise the connection between the fire and the sun, the heat givers, the life givers, and they've gone on to celebrate fire at certain times of the year in what we would now call the fire festivals, which mark the changing of a season from one to the other. In the Celtic calendar, we know those fire festivals as Samhain or Halloween, which comes at the end of October and celebrates the turning of autumn to winter. The next is Imbolc, the beginning of February, turning winter to spring. And perhaps one of the most celebrated is Beltaine, or May Day, as spring turns to summer, as the growing begins on our lands, as the warmth of the sun returns and life seems to get a little bit easier. And the fourth festival is Lunasa at the beginning of August, when we can begin to gather our harvests before completing the cycle with the return of Samhain. So hello lovelies, I hope you'll join me by the fire here at the Wagon-by-the-woods, and we'll talk a while about how it was and how it is now. And as I'm making this video, we're only a couple of days away from May Day, from Bealtaine. So I'll be talking about the Beltaine or May Day celebrations, some of the traditions and customs, and I'll also be talking about how we use fire, the cooking tools we've used and how they've developed over the years to what we have today. And I'll be showing you some of those pots and pans, some of the methods we use to cook our food on the campfire. So to get things going, let's get a fire started and put the kettle on. So to get our fire going, we need dry stuff. These cones, these small sticks, and some dry wood. We want to get that all ready before we start trying to light the fire. So in this little leather pouch that I made, I keep some little bits and pieces. So I've always got a little kindling kit, a little starter kit as it were. And I keep things like little bits of twig, bits of birch bark, bits of fluffy things. Fluffy things are good. And I might use a King Alfred's cake to keep an ember. The black fungus that you find growing on dead trees, particularly ash, they hold embers well. So thanks to our unpredictable English weather, my campfire pit has got wet. So I'm going to need to put something down so that we can get our fire going in the dry. Some dry wood to keep the fire off of the wet ash until it gets going. And then I'll get the bits together that I need to start the fire. I'm going to start off with this fluffy stuff. This is a mix of sheep wool that I got off the fences, and it's also got a little bit of the fluff that comes from the inside of a bulrush head. Very fluffy and soft. Natural, fluffy, dry things like this are great for getting the fire going. And we'll also want a bit of dusty stuff, ideally. So I'm going to take my bit of birch bark. And in the bottom of the little bag I've also got little dusty bits of sawdust and fine chippings. One of the ways we can make dust is by using birch bark, which we rub with a knife to create the dust, which catches the spark very easily. You'll see this a lot on other bushcraft videos where they're showing you how to light a fire. When I've got a bit of dust, I'll add that to my fluffy stuff. So I've got my dust and my fluffy stuff, my bits of birch bark. Now to light it. You could use something like this, a ferro rod. That one's a bit small for my liking, so I've treated myself to this mighty, the mighty rod. Being longer, it gives more sparks. You strike it with the steel. You can use the steel that comes with it. This one comes with a little bottle opener as well. This one's on a paracord cable, so the paracord is handy stuff to have around your camp. I use the back of my knife as a striker, which I know some people don't approve of, but it just gives me more to keep hold of. So once I've got the spark going, just put those little bits of birch on there and start adding little twigs. And we start with the smallest sticks and gradually build up until we put the logs on. This may seem like a beginner's guide, but you'd be surprised how many people have never sat round a fire, let alone lit one. It's amazing to think that our ancestors first learned how to do fire starting over 1 million years ago. Imagine the party they would have had. I often feel like having a party for one when I'm just lighting the fire for my cooking. There's something about fire, that warm glow, that welcoming. And that's what encourages people to dance around the Beltaine fires and the Samhain fires and to celebrate. Because when you think about it, where would we be without it? And the Celtic word Bealtaine means bright fire. Beltaine, or May Day, is very significant in the agricultural calendar, when the livestock is moved to higher pastures. And they may have driven their livestock between two Beltaine fires, believing that this would help to cleanse them and protect them. And this ritual was known as Bealtaine. And fire's also been used as a warning to warn the people in the area of impending trouble, and they light the beacon fires on the high hills. And while we're waiting for the kettle to boil, here's a fun fact for you. Did you know that the first kettles, as we would know them today, in that they have a spout, they were found to have existed in 3500 BC in Mesopotamia. So we've been brewing up for a long time now. This kettle I've got here probably dates from the 1940s or 50s. But before the kettle had a spout on it, as we know, any vessel that you cooked food in or boiled water in would have been called a kettle. Such as this cauldron, as we would now call it. This is a very large one, an antique cauldron, but smaller vessels would have been used to boil our water and cook smaller amounts of food. And when we discovered how to make metals, our whole cooking process leapt forward, with cast iron being one of the oldest forms of metal we used for cooking. I do have a smaller cauldron, and I also use a Dutch oven, which is cast iron, which I use as my oven for baking and roasting. I don't tend to use mine to directly put stews and soups and casseroles in. I keep it just for baking, just like an oven, which means I don't have to clean it out as much as I would if I was cooking my casserole. The beauty of a Dutch oven is that it holds the heat and distributes it evenly. This one comes with this lid, which you can also use as a frying pan. It's got little feet on the bottom of it to stand it over the embers. And then when we stand it in the fire or in the embers, we put more embers on top, which acts like an oven to bake it. And we can hang it over the fire, just like the old cooking pots. A bit like the early cauldrons. They have little feet on to keep them separate from the fire. And you can put embers on the top, held in by the rim that runs around the edge of the lid. And when it's time to take the lid off, we use this little hook, which locks in place over the handle. Some folks might have used an old tin to make an oven out of, like this one. The Boy Scouts used to make biscuit tin ovens out of things like this. Large tins where the lid comes off. You can turn it on its side, put the lid back on, and put the warmth of the fire around it. You could use a upturned tray like this one to hold the heat and burning the base of whatever you're cooking in it. Place that in the bottom, or you could use stones. It's just a matter of keeping the flame from touching the very bottom. And you put your lid. I would probably tend to drill a few holes in it for a little bit of ventilation before you fix it onto the front of your oven. Then you put the fire around it and embers on the top. And today we can use a more modern invention, which is this collapsible reflector oven. People have made reflector ovens for a long time, out of tin. This one's steel. It comes in a flat pack, so it's handy and lightweight to carry with you. If you're interested in learning a bit more about how I use the kit and the kit I use, I'm going to be doing a separate video for that very soon. And we can barbecue and cook our food over the embers using a grill in much the same way folks have done for millennia. So we can cook pretty much whatever we like, just as you could in an ordinary oven or on a hob. We can bake ourselves a tasty crumble like this, made with apple and blueberries, baked in the reflector oven, and feed ourselves heartily, all from the powers of the flame. The same flames that cook for us, that warm us, that light up the night, the same flames we might dance around at a fire festival such as Beltaine, or the same flames we may just sit by, enjoying the warmth and contemplating. But Bealtaine's not just about dancing round the fire. It's not just about the fire. It is a good excuse to gather with friends and family, but it's also a celebration of new life. Bringing in the May, when the scent of May blossom fills the air. In some areas, we have well dressing, where we dress the wells and celebrate their life-giving force. When we might bring spring flowers into the home, yellow cowslips, or that symbol of the sun, the dandelion, who represents not only the sun, but the moon too. And when the seeds take to the air, they represent the stars. And now the land is growing rich, and we find the bright greens that we can forage, like this wood sorrel, and loads of other tasty, fresh spring treats. It's a glorious time in the woodland when nature uses her most beautiful palette. The blues of bluebells, the delicate violets, white stitchwort and wood anemone, the yellow primrose and celandine or archangel. It feels like a time of renewal, a time for joy. It feels like a fresh start, when maybe some of our wishes may come true. So whether you're gathering to dance round a Bealtaine fire, or just bringing in some spring flowers to welcome the May and the summer. Or if you're dancing round the maypole on the village green, you'll be joining with the ancestors in celebrating this ancient festival. So I'd like to thank you for joining me and Minnie around our campfire. And I wish you all a bright and blessed Beltane, full of magical moments.